Hey everybody, it's me, Remy the Comic Book Poser, and I'm here today to welcome you to Enter the Poserverse. It's Tuesday, so you know two things are going down. Number one, I'm about to spend way too much time talking about way too many goddamn books that I'm pulling this week. And number two, I'm going to tell you how you can enter to win some of the books off that list. So, to see what I recommend and how you can win, you'll have to check it out after this.
Hey, little girl, did you want to know a secret?
I got 5 on it. 5, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Alright. So like I said last week, all you have to do to enter to win what I am calling very lovingly the poser pile is comment on the video. Tell me what you're excited about this week. Tell me, just say hi, start chatting with me about something, let's get to talking. Last week's winner is announced shortly after 10 o'clock Central on Shop Talk was Chuck Pops, and to kind of get a sampling, and yes, these books will be bagged and boarded. They've just been sitting in the same spot since I picked them up on Wednesday and showed them off Thursday night. Saga number 55, what I think is the hottest book of the week. Iron Man number 16, the homage to Tales of Suspense cover, or the classic cover from the week before. Rain number 1, that was my pick of the week. The spoiler cover for the 10 deaths, X deaths, I don't know, of Wolverine number 1. I really enjoyed the book this week. I really like this kind of weird cyberpunk 2099-ish looking Wolverine. And then I picked up Stray Dogs Dog Days number 2 because my shop didn't have the horror variant, but I am also throwing in a horror variant for Dog Days number 1. So all you have to do, comment on this video, and you will win 5 to 7 very, very similar books, and you'll hear what I'm excited about right now. Alright, so who knows how accurate League of Comic Geeks is? I know the moment I finish recording this that like half of these books will move to next week. That's just the nature of the business. So we start off with a pair of Marvel books. First up is Alien number 9. I have enjoyed this series far more than I thought I would. That from the moment we heard the first Alien title was coming, there were a lot of folks who were going to be terrified about whether or not it would be, sanitized down from the Dark Horse universe of Alien. And I like how it's kind of telling its own story in its own, spooky and gory way. And we're still dealing with an evil multinational corporation that wants to weaponize aliens. Hell yeah. Next up, Amazing Spider-Man number 88. Number 87 was in my runner-up pile last week because I enjoyed how Stella got her groove back of Peter Parker. In this one, I think we are getting a first appearance of Queen Goblin. So this book could be kind of hot this week that we were seeing, a lot of the first appearances in some of these new Marvel arcs explode that, people were hunting for Thor 20 and Black Panther number 3 in the last 2 weeks, so we'll see if this one has the same kind of hype behind it, but I'm excited. Next up from Image Comics is Ant number 2. I feel like Ant number 1 came out in like November. I forgot what happened in it. You also hear me say that a lot in these videos where it's like, I read a lot of crap and I don't remember. Next up from Boom Studios, one of my favorite books from 2020, and this is our first issue in 2021, and this is our first issue in 22, is Basilisk. We get Basilisk, no, is this our first issue? I don't know. But we get Basilisk number 7, where we are seeing the culty team track down Hannah and her creepily, face-melting partner. I like the tension of this. I love the art team on this. I love the way Cullen Bunn writes. I've been excited about this since go. Next from DC is Batman number 120. I think the first 2 of this, and it's Williamson on Batman now, has been kind of interesting. That we'll see. I really kind of enjoyed what happened with the Insanity Collective and Miracle Molly and, the, Iron Man copy kind of thing in the previous arc. So I'm excited to see how everything kind of gets set up in this arc, since we're only 3 books in from Williamson and the team that he's working with. Next up from Aftershock is Chicken Devil number 4. If you remember when number 3 came out, all I could think about was the Bazinga ball pit moment from Big Bang Theory, just from the cover. Things were starting to come together where Mitchell was getting ready to, fire his shots and be able to move on from the worst, 3 days of his life. So this is the end of the first arc. So I'm excited, A, to see how it wraps up, and B, what comes next. How much more can his life continue to suck? Now that he's in the drug game, and he's a hilarious chicken mascot who is accidentally killing people in quite epic ways, I'm ready for more. Next is Crossover 11 from Image Comics. I have been enjoying this. We are seeing the crew get closer and closer to finding who may be killing the writers who have been slowly dying off. I also like this cover because it feels like a Star Wars homage. That I think that's kind of cool in terms of all of the good and evil and greater religious forces symbolism that we've seen play its way throughout the series thus far. Next up from Marvel is Daredevil Woman Without Fear number 2. I've enjoyed this. I love that they're now still focusing on developing Elektra Daredevil, or Elektra as Daredevil outside of the Daredevil arc. I can't remember how many issues this is actually going to go on for. I think I've got 3 on my pull list, so I don't know if this is going to be its own just kind of short mini associated with the Devil's Reign event, or if we keep getting Elektra as Daredevil, because I really enjoyed kind of the complex depths that we've seen played out with Elektra, or, with her kind of wanting to mentor somebody else into a superhero path. Next up from DC is Dark Knights of Steel number 4. I've enjoyed this. The last book was dope, where we saw a huge fight between, Diana's mom, the Queen of Themyscira, and Black Adam. Big old fight on a boat, a lot of superpowers. We know that everybody is terrified to see what is happening with the elves arriving. And then the only other thing that I noticed from this cover is I can't tell if that is just a kind of green Kryptonian colored circle in the background, or if that could possibly be something that almost looks like a busted up Omega. Or we may be seeing some Darkseid, some Anti-Life playing in the, medieval-ish days of this tale. But this series has been brilliant thus far. That I picked up number 1 only because I heard a bunch of people talking about the Tuesday before it came out, how good it was, and y'all are right. Next up from Image, Geiger is back. This is kind of our 80-page, giant-size one-shot where we're starting to see in-depth stories on individual characters from throughout the series, and this is going to set us up for the beginning of the second arc, and I think it comes towards the end of March. Next up from Vault is Human Remains number 5. Talked about that last week. It got pushed this week. Next up from DC is Joker Presents a Puzzle Box number 7. We saw a fairly interesting turn of the tables in book number 6, as we're starting to kind of see that maybe people got bumfuzzled by Clayface showing up, who I still think is one of my favorite villains in the DC world, just kind of the shape-shifting actor. But there's a question of now who has the real pieces of the puzzle box and what happens next. One of the books that I'm the most excited about this week from Image Comics' New Masters number 1. It is a pair of brothers from Nigeria who won a Creator for Creators grant, and they are telling their story. This is going to be one of the first kind of modern Afrofuturist tales coming out from a major publisher that's not Black Panther, that we're starting to see the ways that, Black folk can be deployed with a vision of hope and change for the future, but done in an action-adventure or sci-fi variant. In the same way, that I've read a lot of the women and gender studies literature behind some of the stuff that we've talked about with Ma on Shop Talk. I've also read a lot of Afro-pessimism and Afro-futurism oriented literature, so I'm excited to see how a title like this kind of works into my frame of reference in looking at lenses of race, of should it be, hope or nihilistic pain to shape the way that black bodies understand their orientation to the world. The Image train continues. New Burn number 3 is out this week. Chip Zdarsky writing crime is good. Chip Zdarsky writing a lawyer we know is good. And New Burn is one, all of those kinds of things together, because he is a fixer for all of the mafias in town, that he may be the most influential person. We also saw that his new partner committed to working with him by the end of issue number 2, so I'm excited to see their relationship play its way out. Also from Image, from one of my favorite people in the world, Rodney Barnes, and artist Jason Sean Alexander, we get issue number 4 of Nita Hawes' Nightmare Blog. This spun off from Philadelphia. This has been as intense in its own right as the Mother series. And one of the reasons why you haven't heard me talk about it in ranking videos is just because I was behind, but I am caught up, baby. I'm excited about this. So maybe you see this as one of the books that makes it into the poser pile. Another Image book, Nocterra number 7. Scott Snyder, Tony S. Daniel, and the rest of the creative team have absolutely been crushing it on this series. This is our first official book of the second arc. I really like the Blacktop Bill one-shot that came out 2 weeks ago, kind of adding some more depth to the villain of the series. We know what Val and the crew of ferrymen are attempting to do in terms of, bringing the light back, but as they're still kind of dealing with the existential crisis of dealing with the darkness, and, whether or not they actually scared Blacktop Bill off, we'll have to find out. Another book that I'm very excited about this week is the official Image timeline number 1. That if you liked, any of the Marvel Encyclopedia kind of books that come out, this is going to give you your chronological history of, the third largest comic book publisher in the industry that has changed things so extremely that, you see how many Image books that I'm pulling in any given week, that, I am pulling as many Image books as I am Marvel books this week. And I just think that speaks to, how unexpectedly successful that a bunch of kind of angry young titans of the industry were in the early 90s when they said, screw it, let's start our own game. And we can kind of see how they continue to kind of ratchet the stakes up as we keep pushing through things. Alright, from AWA we get Primos number 1. This is, I think, the only new title in February coming out. There might be one more from AWA, but I think everything else is a continuation. But you get Mayan brothers who built a rocket, went to space, came back, and find out that they were just, their civilization was destroyed, and somebody's out for blood. So I'm excited for this, not just to look at, but also when I've taught world history in terms of looking at Spanish colonialism of the southern parts of North America, Central America, and South America, that, this would be interesting if we can see if this becomes another kind of what-if teaching tool of what if there was a Mayan who survived that wanted to restore that ancient civilization back to its place of epicness. Next up, a pair of Marvel books that I'm super excited about. The first is Sabretooth number 1. First time we saw this dude was in either House or Powers of X number 2, when he was not willing to assimilate. He violated one of the big 3 laws on Krakoa, and they were literally like, F you, my dude, and threw him into a pit, where he was consumed by the island, and there has literally been no mention of him since then. He might be coming back. I think this is a 6-issue mini, but I'm excited to see him just kind of tear ass back out from the island, be like, I'm ready to throw down, especially if we get him written into some of the Wolverine stuff, because I think if we get hellacious Sabretooth up against, weird 2099 cyberpunky Wolverine that we saw last week, it could be an interesting showdown. Also, we get Savage Spider-Man #1. So what? There are 3 spiders in my life again this week with ASM, Savage Spider-Man, and Spider-Woman. So we'll see. I like Ben Reilly, so I want to see how this kind of feels, where we are getting, angry, invoking pain Spider-Man kind of playing its way out. So we'll see. Next up from Image is the Scumbag 12. All you have to know is that this is part 2 of Golden Brown Eye. I think that's the funniest fucking name for an arc, but it's also true to just kind of the riff of what if a scumbag, became a spy with superpowers and still continued to do whatever he wanted. That's the series. I've loved every second of it. I am excited to get Spider-Woman #19 this week. There are some interesting covers, and this is also a tie-in to Devil's Reign that we saw in Spider-Woman #18, kind of the fight between Jessica Drew and Kingpin, so we can see how she dusts off after this one. But we also get, is there a clone? Who is the real Jessica Drew? That I'm liking, all the clone drama and the spider-oriented books at the moment. So I'm excited to see how this turns out. All right. Next up from Marvel is The Thing #4. I've read issues 1 and 2, have not read #3 yet. This has been okay. Still intrigued in reading some of the older Thing from the late 80s and early 90s. Next, Until My Knuckles Bleed #1. This was supposed to come out last week, got pushed to this week. Next from Marvel, we are in the 3rd week of the Deaths of Wolverine cycle. I enjoyed the first issue of Lives a lot. It was in my weekly picks. The first issue of Deaths last week was pretty interesting, so I want to see, now that we are in the 3rd issue and we know some other things from X-Men #7 and the Marauders annual, if those will kind of play into this, since we're still kind of getting here's the order you should read it in if you're reading them. We also get excellent, this is another spin-off from the Ecstatics book that came out last year, that the Island of Misfit Toys of the X-Men, that each of these X-hyphenate books that tend to only have 1 or 2 issues a year tend to be fairly interesting. And then our last book of the week is X-Men Legends #11. I am on #8. I am getting so close to being caught up on this, but I have enjoyed this series as it continues to kind of color in between the lines on the X-Men of my childhood in the, mid-90s. So what do you think? Are there any books that I'm not pulling this week that you think I need to grab? I know if you're watching it live, you're letting me know over here. If not, let me know in the comments down below. Don't forget to enter. Just comment, say anything. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel, and we will announce at around 10 o'clock Central on Thursday night on Shop Talk who wins the 2nd week of the poser pile. Also, feel free to let me know in the chat, but most definitely in the comments, if there is a book that you would love to see thrown in the poser pile from the last 2 weeks, let me know, and I'll show it off on Thursday, right before we draw the winner. So as always, y'all, thanks for stopping by. Have a good one.
Hey, little girl, did you want to know a secret?
I got 5 on it. 5, 1, 2, 3, 4.